Hi guys, it's Kathy Cervecca with VoiceOver Web Design. I do web design for voiceovers, so I guess that's pretty clear. For those of you who don't know me, I've been doing web design since 1999 and had my own business since 2002. I also teach web design. I have a degree in photography, so I will kind of be speaking as the web designer slash photographer for this talk. Which is entitled How to Use Photos in Your Website the Right Way. Yes, there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. So let's get started and talk about what that is. All right. The topics I'll cover are the website trends, and some of this I covered in a previous recording about graphics in general for the web, but this is now specifically about photographs, how to optimize them and make them work correctly. So we're going to talk about website trends with photos and how photos can help or hurt your website. They can hurt, but they can also help. Common mistakes that people make with using photographs, how to optimize photos for the web, and the programs to use to optimize photos for the web. And then we'll also talk about a plugin for WordPress called WP Smush, which I've been using. It used to be called Smush It. It used to be owned by Yahoo, but now some other company bought it. I'm not sure who. And now it's called WP Smush. And it does a nice job as a final, step to try and crunch it as best as possible. There are other plugins out there that seem to maybe be starting to overtake WP Smush, but I'll show you this one because it's one I've been using. So the trends, first of all, big photos are in. I think we know that pretty much now, but we'll cover it again. It's the opposite of how it used to be. We used to be always trying to make smaller photos. Not that we didn't want bigger photos, but they were just, the file size used to be just too big and it wouldn't load. It would take so long to load. But now we have such fast internet and wireless, and our computers are fast, and even our phones are fast. I apologize, my bird's going crazy now. So all of this allows us to have a photo-heavy website with larger photos, but you have to be smart about it, because if your website takes too long to load, people are going to turn away. So we have to do that optimization process. You can't just put in some jumbo photo without doing some things to it to make it load quickly. And always keep in mind, the more photos you put on a website, the slower the website's going to be. So we need to make sure that we keep the file size super tight and we size those images just to exactly what we need. We're not bringing in something that's super gargantuan and then trying to shrink it down inside the website. It's not the best way to do it. In fact, it's kind of a terrible way to do it. So I wanted to show you this website, give you some examples. But what I like about this website is that this is the World Chess website. It's chess. It's not exciting. And I don't mean that as that chess isn't exciting, but I mean, for some people it is. But it's a very static activity, right? It's kind of like voiceover. You're at a mic, you're reading, you're kind of sitting there. Maybe you're a little animated with your hands, but that's about it. So it's, you might think that there's no room for photographs, but look at these images. First of all, this top one here, hopefully you can see my pointer, this top image, I think he's the challenger to the, whoever the champion is. And then we've got an image of a man, he's, I don't know, taking notes, probably strategizing. And then we've got another image of a couple people really thinking and working at it. So, there's a lot of imagery for the fact that it's just, I shouldn't say just, but it's a chess website. You just wouldn't think it would lend itself to that. But these are actual photos that a professional photographer took, for the most part. This one in the middle here does not look professional, but, so they have some method to their madness. I like this one, the guy, it shows some intensity. sitting there with a bottle of water. They're probably there for hours at a time. This image down here on the right, excuse me, really gives you a feel for the intensity, I think, of what they're doing right now. And these guys are just probably famous people. So, though these are photos specific to taken from this event, you just see how important photos are, even for something like this. Here's another website, and this is a very typical trend to have a large photo take up everything above the fold, and then you put text on top of it. Now, I've talked about this in that other web graphic tutorial, but I'll just say again that you can do this. And there are ways to sort of fade out that image, either to kind of soften, like lighten it or darken it, or maybe blur it a little bit, so that it becomes much more of a background. And you can then put things on top, like your audio player and some text and that kind of thing. So here's another. This is a home page of a restaurant. I don't remember what it is. I just grabbed it. But it's, the guy cooking pizza, I think. Looks like he's cracking an egg on it or something. I don't know what he's doing. But with the menu at the bottom, which I don't really advise, but you get the idea. It's this large photos. Lots of photos and large photos are definitely in. So not just big photos, but just more photos and less text. So here's some more examples. This is a theme called Salient. But you can see where you can take, this is my thought on this. On your home page, below your player and your initial text and headline, you can have images like this that either help tell your story or help with your branding. You can mention something that's on another page. Say this is about, refers to your about page. Little blurb of text there, and you can have a button that says click here to learn more, that actually navigates to that next page, and so on and so on. If you only have a couple pages or only one other page, you can still do this with just one. Use the photo and put a button on top of it. If it's your contact page, click here to contact me or something like that, and it links to another page. So it's actually a really good idea to have, even though you have other pages that explain what they are, to put just little blurbs from those pages on your home page as a teaser with an image, because we like images, and then a link to that page. Here's another example. This image up on top here, called the hero image, meaning it's the top main large image. Again, this is a theme, so these images do not go together, but you get the idea of the concept. It's just very image heavy. Again, smaller images with little blurbs, and then a link to, you could actually click on the image to go to the story that it's telling you about. Again, same thing. 3 images, they keep showing 3 images. 3 is pretty common, but it doesn't have to be. It can be 2, it could be 1. I know voiceover websites tend to be a little smaller, tend to not have as many pages, or they just have 1 page. And actually, this lends itself really well to even just 1 page. You could just have the image and then just a little bit of information underneath it, and that's all you have. So, there's just a lot of ways to go about this. But the point is, the trend is to use photos. Now, these are photos. You can use illustrations, and people do use them. But definitely what's going on right now is photo heavy. Again, same thing. What's kind of cool about this one is the hero image that you see at the top here is, if you forget about this headline and this button here, you could actually put your player right in this white area, and you could fuzz out this background image, or fade it, darken it or lighten it or something, and have some text next to your player there. And you're still getting that image effect, but it's not distracting, and your player is still smack right there as soon as the viewer loads the page. Then you have a headline underneath the image and some text. This is not the menu. This is actually a filter for these images. The menu I cut off in this image. The menu's up at the top. But you can see, again, they have, you know, the 3 image thing, and underneath there is some text with links. So photos can help or they can hurt. They help if they have purpose. They lend visual support to your story. So it has to be pertinent to your story, or it has to be pertinent to your brand. Okay? If it doesn't fulfill one of those 2 things, you really shouldn't have it there. Don't put a photo up, and I'll talk about this later, but don't put a photo up just because it looks cool or it's something you kind of like it's a picture of a horse because you like horses. If that's not part of your brand, then it shouldn't be on there. If you somehow worked horses into your branding, then that's a different story. Actually, it could be a good metaphor. So that's what you want to keep in mind is, does the photo support your story, which is what your website is doing. Your website is telling the story of you and your service and how you help people. Or is it part of your branding, who you are? People tend to look at photos first. It's just the way we are. We look at photos, our eye just goes right there. So we look at the image first, if there is one. A lot of voiceovers don't tend to have photos. And I'm trying to get you to think maybe you should have photos. And I think the reason voiceovers don't think about photos is because they think, well, I don't want a photo of me. And that's okay. I think most people should have their own photo on, but I know that's a hot topic. But then think about other photos. What other photos can you put in there that add visual interest, that support the story, support your brand? You know, just put a little effort into that, and you could come up with some really cool stuff. Putting these photos on is going to help with the professional appearance of your website. You want to be on par with the big boys or girls. This is a place, the internet is a place where we can all be on the same playing field. It becomes level. So you can make your website professional, on par with anyone else. And that's a super cool thing. So I'm trying to help you to take advantage of that. So we look at the image first, if there is one. Then we read the headline. Remember I showed you that one image? I said the big image and then the headline underneath. And then we scan the body content. And I've quoted this guy before, David Ogilvy. He was a big advertising guy in the late 50s and 60s. So I guess during like the Mad Men era. I didn't really watch that show, but I kind of got the feeling that it's sort of around, you know, probably had a little bit to do with this guy. He was the guy in advertising at the time. He did a lot of testing. And what he found was that people look at the photos. So it's like, be sure to have the photo above the headline or you can lose viewers. So when I said image first, then headline, the thing is, if you have the headline first and then the image, people just skip right past that headline because their eyes go to the image. It's just kind of how we're wired. So photos can hurt you if they're there just because they look cool, but they don't add to the story or brand, which is what I've already said. Or if they load slowly because you didn't optimize them properly. Slow loading photos are a reason that people will leave a website, and they also ding you with Google. That's a little bit of a downgrade for you. And they're also bad for people who are using phones, because phones are not as fast as our desktop, our laptop, or even our iPad. They're hurt you if they're bad quality photos, if they're pixelated, distorted, they look amateurish, any of that. Now, I bet already you guys have been looking at the photos. Did you start looking at these photos when I first brought this slide up? Your eye probably went right down there, I bet. I know. But these are stock images, and I like stock images. I use stock images. But you don't want them to look like typical, obvious stock photos, which is what these are. This woman's been around for a while. I don't mean to say she's been around, but she's been around for a while. So this is very typical. And who is she? If you're going to have a photo like this on your website, it ought to be you wearing that headset. And I'm guessing a better one maybe than what she has. Doesn't look like a real. Anyway, this microphone, nobody's using this microphone anymore. Now, I like retro. My site is on the retro side. I love the feel of retro, but this microphone has been used and used and used in photos because it is cool. It is retro, but it's not, it's kind of done, right? This other one with here we are in front of a mixing board, a rather modern mixing board, excuse me. But then it's got this retro mic stand, table stand, and, it's an obvious setup. And then this image of this woman over here on the left, oh my gosh, she's, first of all, she does not look happy about what she's doing. And here's what people always want to do. Because doing voiceover can tend to be a bit of a static thing unless you're really using your arms, and emoting with your face. You're really just otherwise kind of standing there. So what do they do? Put your hand on the can. You put your hand up on the headset, and that's going to make it a little more active. It's like when I worked at Bell Labs, and every once in a while the corporate photographer would come around to take a picture of me working at the computer. So what do they have you do? Well, typing, it's just kind of boring. So they have you point at the screen like, oh, look at that. It's the only way to add some action to the photo. So that's when you see a lot of these with the hand on the headset. I put that hand on the can, hand on the headset. So that's pretty typical stuff there. Whoops. Now here these are from iStockphoto.com, which I love and I use quite a bit. But I just did a search for voiceover just to see what they were going to show me. And I'm like, I can't even pull one out of here. I'm just going to put this whole page up because most of these are bad. We've got this woman here. First of all, I don't even understand what the setup is that she's working in. And again, two hands on the headset. And she's like, what do you, oh, okay. Like she's looking at somebody on the other side of the glass in the studio. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Microphones with pop filters. Again, it's not awful because it is what you use, but pretty standard. If you're going to use shots with microphones and pop filters, try and find some that are interesting, or have a professional photographer try and find some different angles, have a different perspective on the same topic. This one I don't mind, the woman's mouth up by the microphone. It's kind of interesting. It's a little different than usual. Again, if there's going to be a person, like I'm looking at all these photos here, if you're going to get your picture taken with your headset on looking directly at the camera, I mean, it ought to be you. It ought not to be a stock image. Some of these are just boring. The microphone with this upper right microphone here is boring. The next one on the left is, it's okay. It's okay. One after that, it's okay. Then this girl, she's at least reading a script, but she doesn't have a headset on. Plus, again, this should be you. And you should have it done professionally. Looking at things like the little pieces of hair sticking out, and it's super, super cropped. So it's too cropped. And I'm somebody who likes a tight crop image, but that's too much. So yeah, microphone with the mixing board right in front of each other. It's just a little too on the nose, as they say. This guy down here, he's about to take a bite out of his Blue Yeti. Nobody's doing this, right? Nobody's screaming in their mic, hopefully. This microphone here is kind of cool because slightly different angle. It's a little abstract, right? And you could actually put some text next to it as a larger graphic. So that's not bad. And I'm just going to skip over to this last picture on the bottom right. If this were you in the picture, this would be a fantastic portrait. Yeah, it is a typical kind of stance, but it's nice, isn't it? If that were you, I would not put this on as a stock image because it's not you. But if you had a photographer taking a picture of you like this, with this wonderful professional lighting and this wonderful moment that captures his personality, that's very nice. So some common mistakes with photos: stretching and distorting. I think we've all probably seen this. Look at her. She doesn't look right. This is not right. It's just not right. Um, this happens when you take a photo and you just try and you need it to be a certain size, so you squish it and stretch it and resize the image without keeping the perspective or the aspect ratio. You allow it to become distorted, and that never looks good. I don't care if it's a professional shot or what. It's not good. We know something's wrong with this picture. We can tell. Our brains just know that this is not right. Or using low quality or amateur photos. Now, you may look at this and go, well, that doesn't look low quality, but putting my photographer goggles on, it is. It's poorly lit. It's poorly set up. It's clear that a pro did not do this. It's just the guy got up, and he might have even been using his camera when he shot this. His camera, of course his camera, but I was going to say his phone. You know, it's very strongly lit in the front, so there was a flash used, and then the lighting falls off in the back. And it's the swing bar, the arm is, you know, kind of crossing in front of everything. But what about something like this? Now, this is a much nicer studio, I get that, but look at the lighting. I know it's got watermarks all over it. Try and look past that. You can see all the way to the back equally well. Even this dark foam, you can still make out detail on it. Now, up in the upper right, it gets darker, but that's okay. The important stuff is really right here. So when you compare it, let me back up here. You look at this and the lighting, and then you look at this, the lighting's just so much better. It's a better color of light, and it's evenly lit, it's well lit, and it's professionally set up. Again, it would look nicer if it didn't have little crisscross watermarks all over it. So just, you know, to kind of get your eye going, noticing the difference between amateur and professional. And even though your viewer might not be that savvy to know the difference, they're going to kind of get a feel like when one just looks so much nicer than the other, but they may not know why. And usually it's subtle things like lighting. So common mistakes: using high resolution, large sized photos. Photos that come out of your camera can be 2,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels in size. Now, to put that in perspective, usually, I hope you can see my mouse as I'm moving it, but usually the width of the main content area of a web page is about 1,000 pixels. Now, there may be background area or image behind that, but the actual content itself doesn't go the full width of the screen usually. It's about 1,000 pixels wide. So think about that, and you're putting in a 2,000 pixel wide photo. Obviously, you're going to have to take it and scrunch it, and that is no good, because no matter, even if you resize it within WordPress, it's still going to be the same file size. It's still going to be this large photo, and when you shrink it by just clicking and dragging within the WordPress editor, you're going to make it a lower quality because you're crunching it up. And also, usually the high resolution photos, that's what this is called, a high resolution photo, 300 pixels per inch, PPI. Our screen still can only handle 72 pixels per inch. Excuse me. So 300 pixels per inch is just overkill. What that means, 300 pixels per inch is just a lot more information in the file, so that when you want that for when you want to print a photo, you want that high resolution. But on the internet, on the web, our screens can't do anything with 300 pixels per inch. It doesn't even render it, so it's waste. So you need it to be 72 pixels per inch. So this file that I'm talking about can end up being something like 4 to 10 megabytes in size. That's huge. The web cannot, a website, I should say, the web can handle it, but most people's downloadability, their computers, their internet, whatever, and certainly the phone, cannot handle that. It's going to be so slow to load. And when you think about it, your largest photo file size should be 300 to maybe 550K or kilobytes. And those are just numbers off the top of my head based on what I usually work with. So the difference I'm talking about here is a megabyte. A megabyte is about 1,000 kilobytes. So if you got 4 to 10 megabyte photo and it really should be 300 kilobytes, that's a huge difference, right? Huge difference. Thousands of bytes difference in file size. This is the most numbers I'm going to throw at you. I promise. And you don't have to totally comprehend this. All I'm trying to get the point across is that you can get high resolution images. They come from when you buy a stock image, they come down high resolution sometimes, unless you specify otherwise, or if you pull something out of your camera, or if you did get professional shots, they're going to give you the high resolution images. So you've got to do something to them to make them not so gargantuan. Another common mistake is taking a small JPEG and trying to enlarge it to fill a space. Now, I hope you can see this, but this image, we saw this in that sheet of stock images prior. But if you take a small image that's only about this big and you try to stretch it bigger, it's going to get this thing that we call artifacting. People call it pixelated. You start to see these chunks, these blocks of weird coloring. It's losing its smooth color gradient, and also it's losing sharpness in the edging. So the whole thing has just lost a ton of quality. It looks like crap, really. So I do see that. Sometimes people just want to take a small image and make it big, and they don't understand why it doesn't work. So you have to optimize your photos for the web. The size of the photo, you have to size the photo, to what you actually need in the web page, or at least close to it. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to show you guys a couple of tools that you can use and how to optimize. I'm going to turn a photo that's it's like 3,000 some pixels wide, and I'm going to make it down to 500 pixels wide, because that's more likely a size I would use in a web page. And even that's kind of big. You can go wide. If it's going to take the whole width, you can make it something like 900 pixels wide. Or if it's going to go within some text, you can make it smaller. But I'm just opting for 500 pixel wide image that's 72 pixels per inch. So, needing to go through the optimization process. So we adjust the actual dimensional size, and then we also compress the file size. So we're going to get it down out of those megabytes and into the kilobytes, right? So optimizing photos should either be JPEG or PNG. Those are the two types of photo files that you should have for the web. It doesn't take TIFFs, and I don't know if there's anything else. And never have a photo as a GIF, a GIF. That doesn't usually happen anymore, but JPEG or PNG. PNG, you're starting to see a lot more now, have superior quality, very good quality, but they also are kind of still a large file size. Even when they're optimized, they can still be rather large in file size. So honestly, hold on. Nobody ever calls me at this number. Sorry about that. Okay. So PNGs are nice. They also allow for transparency. So if you happen to have an image that you don't want a background on, PNGs actually let that happen. So that's really nice. Now, JPEGs, on the other hand, can also be really high quality, but it also allows you to adjust that quality to the threshold of being smaller but not losing quality. So JPEGs kind of give you a little more flexibility as far as how you can shrink the file size. And just normally, they are pretty much smaller than a PNG in file size, so that's good. So the programs to use for photo optimization. I use Photoshop, but not everybody's going to have that. I have Photoshop because of the business that I do. Some people may have Photoshop Elements, I think it's called. And that actually will have the exact same tools that I'm going to show you in Photoshop. So if you have the elements, which is like a pared down version of Photoshop, you'll be able to follow along. There's a program called GIMP, and it's free, and it works on both the Mac and the PC. And it's very robust. For being a free, it's called an open source program. It's very robust. I don't know a ton about it, but I can show you how to optimize an image in it and just give you an idea of what this program can do. Pretty much a lot of the same stuff Photoshop can do. I don't know the programming behind it that makes it function. I don't know if it's as good as Photoshop, but I have optimized images out of it and they come out great. So that's going to be an alternative for you. And then View, which I love, but it's only for the PC. It's been around for years, but the guy's name is actually Irfan, I think. Just has never made it for the Mac. I'm not sure why. But it is free, and you can also optimize your images in there. It's just a great little program I use a lot. And then, excuse me, there's a plugin called, I need to take a drink. Sorry about that. I got a little froggy thing going on. Then we're going to talk about the plugin called WP Smush, and there are a few other plugins, but I've only used Smush, so I'll just introduce you to that and show you how that works. So we're going to go ahead and start playing around with some of these programs. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. I've opened up a flower picture. It's actually one I took in the Adirondacks several years ago by now. Some purple flower. It might even be called the globe flower. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's huge. I don't know if you can see the measurements here, but it actually, here's the 0, and it's over 3,800 pixels wide and almost 2,600 pixels tall. So this falls into that category of way too big. So we want to optimize it. I said I wanted to make the image 500 pixels wide, so I am going to bring it down to that size and make sure that the resolution is set to 72 pixels per inch, and that's across the board. Just always assume you need 72 pixels per inch for the web. Remember, for print you want it to be 300 pixels, but not for the web. So I am going up to the image menu, and I click on the image menu, and I find the option that says image size, not canvas size, but image size. And it gives me a little pop-up window here. And it gives me some information. I can see the width is 3,872 pixels wide. I don't know if you can see my cursor's blinking. The height is 2,592 pixels. Don't worry about the inches because we're not printing, but it does say it is 300 pixels per inch resolution. We need to change all that stuff. In Photoshop, you really should do it in 2 steps. The other 2 programs, you only need 1 step. Because if I just go and change the 72 here to be what I want, look at how it's changed my dimensions. On the one hand, that's okay, but I prefer to do this manually and separately. So I'm going to turn off the resampling just by deselecting it. And now I can't affect the actual dimensional size, but I am changing the resolution. So I say okay to that. So this is still the same dimensional size, but now it has less information in it. It's now 72 pixels per inch. It's actually a lower quality, although because I did it at this size, it still looks fine. But I'm going to go back into image menu, image size, and now I'm going to recheck that resample box. I'll make sure constrain proportions is on, so that when I go up to the width and say now I want this to be 500 pixels wide, the height adjusts correctly automatically because we constrained it, and I've kept the same 72 resolution. And just I don't know if they all offer this, but when you're shrinking an image, it's good to use the sharper feature. This one says bicubic sharper, but all you care about is just that it's best for reduction. It just keeps the image quality. Since we're really shrinking it down a lot, This just helps it look good still. So I just say, okay. And now it looks like this little teeny weeny weeny thing, but that's because we're only viewing it at 25%. So I'm going to put it up to 100%. This is now the full size of my image. It's 500 pixels wide. I'll go to the image size window and it'll tell me. It's now 500 pixels wide, 335 tall, and it's 72 pixels per inch in resolution, which is exactly what I want. Now, if we just did a save as and saved it as a JPEG, a new JPEG, it would be smaller, but it won't be as small as what Photoshop can do to it. So we have one more thing we want to do. We're going to go to the File menu, and a little more than halfway down, you'll see something that says Save for Web and Devices. And we click on that, and I got a pop-up window here. If you only see something like this, just make sure you click on the To Up tab. That way you see this is the original, this is the one that's in there now, the Photoshop version, and this is once you apply your settings to it, how it looks. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, use my little zoom tool. Now, nobody can really, I mean, they can kind of zoom in. You can zoom in on web pages a little bit, but nobody's really going to grab your photo and actually zoom in on it. So we're doing this to really see detail, but keep in mind most people aren't zooming in on your image. So you'll see what I mean as we go along here. I'm going to zoom in one more time just to illustrate. Again, here's the original. It still looks nice. I mean, you're starting to see a little bit of pixels here in the color, but I mean, generally it's, you know, we're viewing it at 300%, so that's bound to happen. But look at, this came up as a JPEG, and the quality is set at 5% out of 100%. So this is super, super low quality, not acceptable, even if we go to 100% visibility, or viewing, sorry. If I take this down to 100%, I can still see that it does not look good. So I don't know if you can tell that or not, but it's true, it's true. So I'm going to zoom in again. And really, I would never, ever use any quality that low. I will tell you that I typically hang anywhere between 50 and 80%, depending on the size of the picture and the type of quality I need. So if I type in the number 50, that's 50% quality from the original, you can still see it's a little chunky around the tips of the flower as compared to the original. So it's still a little lower quality. It might be okay at regular size, but honestly, I like it to be a little better than that. So I'm going to take it up to about 65 for quality. It's still pixely there. The image size, it tells you the size with your new settings. Here's the original. Even with the resize, we took it down from a couple megabytes, but it's still 491K. That's still really big, especially for a 500 pixel wide image. Now, with our quality setting of 65%, we've gotten it down to 43K. Big difference, 491 to 43K, right? Yeah, the quality is kind of not where I want it to be. And let's look at it at 100% again. It's acceptable. You can't necessarily see that pixelated detail there. So it's not bad, but I am going to just up it. Just for good measure, I'm going to put it to 70. And with your plain eye, you probably didn't see any change, but it just improves the quality a smidge bit more, added more to the file size, but not much. It's still 50K, very acceptable size for an image of this, 500 pixels wide. And so that's it. And then we just don't worry about any other settings. By the way, just to show you, inside the Save for the Web, it just went to JPEG, but there are other things in here. You will not use GIF for a photo. You will not. Repeat, I will not use GIF for a photo. Don't bother with PNG 8. That is like PNG's answer to GIF. PNG 24 is the same as like a top quality JPEG. So let me show you something here. The JPEG set at 70% is now 50K. If I selected PNG 24 with no transparency, because I'm using the full image, there's no settings. I don't have any quality settings, and it went up to 265K. So yeah, PNG is a really nice format. It gives you top quality, but it's a large file. It's much larger than it needs to be. So I do tend toward JPEG for the most part. Even if I set the JPEG to 100%, it's still not nearly as big as the PNG, which it was 300 something. This is 140. But I think we're good at, I think I set it to 70. So you see it's this balancing act of quality versus file size, but it gives you all the information you need there. It's so wonderful. The tool just does this for you. And I'm going to say save, and I'm going to drop this on the desktop, and I'll call this one Photoshop, so we know where these, because I'm going to save out 3 different versions. So what that's doing is it's keeping your original large photo, and we're just saving a new file with these new dimensions and file size. So that's really how you do it in Photoshop. And I wouldn't save this because I still have it opened as the original file, so don't save it, just close it. Do you want to save it? No, because I've already exported the image I want. So I'm going to go ahead and close that just to make my computer a little happier. And I'm going to pop up GIMP, G-I-M-P. I don't remember the URL for this, but if you just do a search for GIMP and then something like graphics tool, GIMP graphics tool, something like that, you should find it, no problem. Hopefully you can see all the menus and everything. It's a pretty extensive program for being free. It's crazy. Now I already had the image. This is the original jumbo image opened up in here. And to resize this image, to optimize this image, I go to the image menu. And they have something called scale image. So in GIMP, you want to go to scale image, not canvas size, and they don't have an image size, so we go to scale image. And it pops up this little window, and it's got those same kind of questions. It's a little different, but it's the same concept. The little lock here means that the dimensions will change accordingly. So if I change this width to 500 and click out of that box, it adjusts the height automatically to keep the dimensions correct. And in this one, I can do the 72 at the same time, 72 pixels per inch, and it just automatically sets them both. So that's what I want. They have these quality settings. Remember how we did the bicubic sharper? I think for this particular program, just keeping it at cubic kind of is doing the same thing. And then just click the word scale. And it automatically resized it. Remember, now we're only viewing it at 25%. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here. Whoops. Where I can see it's 25%. I'm going to select 100% so we can view it that way. So this is 100% size. And we're going to go ahead. We can't tell the quality and all that. We haven't done any of that setting yet. And that actually comes as you go to export it. So I'm going to go to File, not Save As, because that'll take you to a whole different thing, but Export As. And it automatically defaults to JPEG. So if you needed, sorry, I'm trying to make this a little smaller. If you needed it to be PNG, it's got all these different file types that you can go through and select, but it defaulted to JPEG, which is what I want. And the file name is the original. This is what came out of my camera, so I'm going to call this GIMP. And I don't like the capital letters for JPEG, so I'm going to actually lowercase those. Hopefully they stay that way. It's not hugely important, but it's just a consistency thing for me with regard to the website stuff. And I just want to make sure I save it to the desktop, so I'm going to the left side here and select desktop, GIMP JPEG, and when I click export, that's where you get your options. So they really wait till the last minute to set the quality. Now it's set right now at 90%, and it's telling me file size unknown. When I've used this before, it actually gives me the file size as I adjust it. For some reason, it's not doing that now. But let's just go ahead for grins and just go to the 70. Now, 70% quality in one program could be very different from 70% quality in another program, but we're just going to try and match them up. In this one, you have these advanced options. You do not need to know what to do with them other than if you uncheck. Now, again, we can't see this, but I know from playing with this previously, as you uncheck, you start to lose some file size. Even though it says optimize, optimizing normally would help you, but sometimes it actually makes it worse. So that would be something you would check. Again, normally you'd see the file size. You could turn this on and off and see what happens to that number. I think I'll leave it on this time just to see. Don't worry about anything else and just click export. And it's done. So remember, I set it out on the desktop, and I'm going to go ahead and close this one. Again, I'm not saving the original or anything. I'm just going to close it. Do you want to discard changes? Yeah, just close the program. And we'll do the one more, Irfan view. Now this is another, again, you just, if you just do a search on Irfan, I-R-F-A-N, and honestly, I think that's all you need to do and it'll come right up. He's been around for, this program's been around for many years, almost as long as I've been on the internet, I think. Not to give my age away or anything, but you probably already could figure. I've been doing this a long time. All right, so here's the full-size image opened up in Irfan view. And again, we have an image menu. And under image, you have an option to resize and resample, which is what we want to do. It's another way of saying optimize. So where it says new size, I'm going to change it. Remember, 500 pixels. And because it's locked to preserve the aspect ratio and keep it proportional, it automatically changed the height. And it says DPI here. Folks, that is actually incorrect for a JPEG. Anything on a screen is pixels per inch, not dots per inch. Dots refers to printing, but people tend to interchange the terminology. So DPI 300, it's really PPI, but we're still going to change it to 72. And that's it. That's all you have to do, and just say, okay. Now it looks really bad. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but because we're viewing it so largely, we're viewing it at the original dimensions, but the quality seems really crummy all of a sudden because now it's actually being viewed at 288%. So I'm going to bring it closer to 100%, the new size. I'm hitting the minus key. That's 101%. That looks better. And that looks pretty nice compared to, well, I'm sorry, it looks nice in comparison to the other ones that we exported. We're going to take a look and view them. I'm looking at the file sizes down at the bottom of the screen, and I think I should see a smaller number than I do. I'm kind of wondering about that a little bit. I expected to see it to look smaller. This is really our only option. Resample, better quality, blah, blah, blah. Apply sharpen after resample. I'm just going to let it go as is. And close that. And we have, you can see I have a bunch of stuff on my desktop. We have GIMP, Photoshop, and Irfan View. And actually, I'm viewing these in Irfan View. This is one of the things I really like about Irfan View, is once you set it to be the default image opener, you can just double click on an image and it pops up immediately. Now, it's popped up to be 288%. I want to view these images at their actual size, so I'm going to go to View, Display, Fit the window to the image instead of the other way around. So here's the full size of the image. I can see there's a little bit of degradation. Again, this is the IRFN image. I am in the IRFN viewer, but this is the IRFN image that we optimized. And look, okay, that's what I was expecting to see. It's 28.48 kilobytes. That's more what I was expecting to see. I'm going to hit the space bar. Will it let me do it? Nope, it won't let me do it. Okay. Normally you can just space bar through the images, but it's going in alpha order. So here's the Photoshop one. Now this one's 50K. Let's compare, shall we? I don't know. I think they both look pretty equitable. And the IRFN view one is smaller. I'm kind of impressed with that and a little bit surprised. Hold on, is that on my, I gotta check my screen, yeah. I saw some dots, but it's actually dust on my screen. It's a little, I can see just here, a little lower quality, just a little bit than I see from the Photoshop one. So I would still say Photoshop wins, but seriously, pretty negligible. We're being very picky here. And let's just go ahead and open the GIMP. Open the GIMP. The GIMP is 23.77K. So we've got Photoshop being the largest one at 50K. IRFN view, and remember we did IRFN, or was it GIMP? No, we did GIMP and Photoshop at that 70% quality, but they came out with different file sizes. Photoshop 70% quality is 50K, and GIMP's 70% quality is 23K. But let's compare. I'm going to put this on top of the IRFN for now. Then move it over a little bit. I will tell you, I see, and I don't know if you can see this, but the quality is less. So that doesn't mean that GIMP can't put out a good quality optimized image. It just means that 70% in GIMP maybe isn't good enough. So I probably needed to up it to something more like 85 or 90, which still would probably end up matching the file size of this and quality as well. All of these are viable options, you guys. All of these came out really nice, but the whole point is that we have now sized the image to exactly the size we need. We've removed extra information within the file that we don't need, and that's allowed us to bring these file sizes down quite low. All right, so the last thing I want to show you, thanks for sticking with me if you're still with me this far, is I've got my website open in, let me close this. I created a page in my WordPress website. I'm in VoiceOver Web Design. I just made up a test images page. And I want to go ahead and insert a photo. Any of them will work. I'm going to grab the Photoshop photo because it is the largest file. Anyway, I don't know that we can do any more crunching on this, but I'll show you my step. When I go to insert a photo, I always just click on Add Image. And I don't have it in my media library, so I click on the Uploads tab. Now you could either drag and drop, or you can click to browse to the picture you want. I'm going to go on to my desktop, which I already am. And I'm going to scroll down to find the Photoshop version. And that will bring it up into my media library. And we can see some information over here on the right. The file name, the date it came up, it's 50K, the dimensions, everything we set up. There's a lot more to do here, but that would be for another day. I usually have the WP Smush set up. It's really easy to set it up to automatically smush any images you upload, so you don't even have to do this step. But I just want to show you. We probably won't see any change in this number because it really is crunched. But every so often when I upload an image and use the smush, it still has a little bit more than it could squeak out of it. And smush it, or smush now, smush, WP smush, does not lose any quality in your image at all. So it's a safe thing to use. So I'm going to say smush it now. And you get this little bar saying it's working on smushing it. And I don't expect to see it change per se, but here's something that might be a little confusing. Yeah, it's still 50K. That's as good as we could get it. We really do have it crunched down. What it did, and you see the stats here, if I open that up, WP Smush, it says 6 images reduced by 4.4 kilobytes or 4%. What does that mean? I just said the one image. Well, WordPress has a tendency to, when you upload one image, it actually creates a couple more for you, creates a couple thumbnails. And you don't see it here, but it did. And themes can also add to that. So these extra options here are from my theme. Created some custom medium, thumbnail, post thumbnail, custom small image. So created some different versions of the image, and each one of them got a little crunchy. Here's the full-size one. It got crunched by 1.64. We didn't see that in the numbers up here, but it says it got crunched. Or smushed, if you'd rather, by 1.64K. Not a lot, it's very negligible, but you know, every little bit helps. And that's it. So then it's smushed, you click insert, and in pops your picture. And if I click update, not that we need to see it at this point, but we'll click update and view it in an empty web page. Come on. And where it says page updated, I can click to view the page just to see it there. There's my image. Now my theme has it set up to put a little rounding on the corners. And actually the color of the wall works well with my theme color, so that's kind of funny. But it looks great and really loaded pretty quickly. So that's the main thing. And that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to show you. I've got a summary slide here. So we went over that photos are a major part of websites now, major part of websites. They're just less text, more photo. Use only photos that support your message or your brand. So you just have, that means you just have to be pretty thoughtful and proactive in how you pick your photos or how they are shot if you have a pro. Be sure to optimize your photos for the web before uploading to your website. And then I showed you, I think that's it. Oh no, I got more. There are image programs that will help you optimize, which of course I just demonstrated. I showed you Photoshop. You can do the same thing with Photoshop Elements. If you have Lightroom, you can also do this in Lightroom, but that's a huge program, and that's really more for people who are really into photography. GIMP, which is free, that to me is like the best option because it had other tools. You can adjust the image and stuff. And View, which is only for PCs, sorry guys, but a nice little freebie program. There are plugins in WordPress to optimize even a little more, but don't just rely on them. You definitely want to do the optimizing prior to bringing it into WordPress. Then these plugins, you'll see there's WP Smush, which I demonstrated. Here are a few others. EWWW image, all one word I think. EWWW image. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Optimizer. That one seems to be kind of up and coming. And there's another one called compressed JPEG and PNG images. I can't speak to these, but I know that they seem to be becoming more popular. I've still used WP Smush. But again, don't just solely rely on those. You got to do the work prior. And now that is it. And I just want to thank you for your time. And please leave comments below if you have any questions or comments. And also you can email me, Kathy, that's C-A-T-H-Y, at voiceoverwebdesign.com. That's all one word, voiceoverwebdesign. Just put it all together, voiceoverwebdesign.com. and I will definitely answer any questions or comments or anything that you have. And if you have ideas for other topics you would like to learn about, please feel free to share that with me. I'd appreciate it, actually. So I'm giving you what you want rather than what I think you want. Okay, so that's it. And I will talk to you